Hey, Bobby, thanks
Hey,
for
Dave.
joining me.
Absolutely. You scammed me into this one, so we'll see how it goes.
I know. Well, hey, I did it to Doug too, and so as you know, this is sort of uh, the rerun of what I tried to do with Doug. So, and he
Yeah.
knows I told Doug. So,
I'm disappointed. I really thought I was going to be the first one, and then you scheduled Dave around me, so I feel a little
uh,
passed over, but I'll get over it.
I blame COVID, right? So,
Oh, yeah, you got COVID. That's true.
yeah, I got sick, so
Yeah.
finally feeling better. And if it wasn't for that, you would have been first. So,
Well,
but hey,
I think that's an acceptable answer.
yeah. Well, so Bobby, we probably should tell people like how we know each other. So
Yeah,
since
that makes sense.
we did work together at Rockwell, but you're uh, you're in the still in the LDP program at Rockwell, right? Leadership Development Program,
Yep.
and you're a master at sailing
Uh,
racing, right? You do some racing,
I try to sail as much as I can,
yeah,
which sometimes is cold and sometimes is warm living in Cleveland these days.
yeah, but no ice on the lake this year, right?
It iced over on the edges, like on the shores a little bit. When we had the really deep freeze in December, it was pretty ice over, but I don't think we ever hit 100% ice coverage.
Yeah,
But I just went sailing in Florida instead this winter.
that's the smart move.
Yeah,
I think you still owe me a trip out on the boat, so
absolutely.
I think we talked about that last year, but
Boat
it's
work has
already.
already started for the spring, so you got to find a time to come to Cleveland.
Do I have to like swab the deck or come paint the boat or anything before I get like rights to take
No,
her?
but you might have to bring beer.
Oh, well, I could do that. That's pretty easy. Yeah, yeah. So I know you. I asked you to interview me here, but
Yeah.
um, just a little bit about you and your background, maybe first, so everybody knows you. And,
Yeah, so I'm a Cleveland guy. I grew up on the west side of Cleveland. I found my way at kind of like accidentally to college in Milwaukee. It was kind of like a second chance, not a second chance, but it was like an offhand college visit. I went to see Marquette in the summer when I was visiting family in Chicago. I ended up really liking Chicago. Ended up really liking Milwaukee. It's a great city, and at Marquette, I got a mechanical engineering degree. When I was there, I co-opted for a manufacturing company. I love manufacturing. And I worked there for a while, probably like almost a year throughout my whole college experience. And coming out of that, I wanted to see a big company before I graduated and entered the real world, as I like to say. So ended up interning for Rockwell. Milwaukee's a Rockwell town. I basically went to school in the shadow of the clock tower and really, really enjoyed the people. And so that's kind of how I got to where I am. I got to Rockwell, and I've been with Rockwell for almost 2 years now. My program rotates me around the company. I'm on my fourth rotation right now. So really it's been a lesson in onboarding and learning new people quickly and how to help at a job. Um,
yeah.
but I really like the people at Rockwell, and I got to spend 6 months with you and listen to all of your stories, sometimes twice.
Well, that's what I'm surprised that you say the people at Rockwell after you spent the time with me. So
I only almost died in your car twice.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, you did have to ride in my company Equinox. So,
Yeah. And it didn't smell too bad.
I cleaned it. I cleaned it a little bit before you got in it. I
You
didn't.
definitely
I threw out the
apologized for
trash.
the stink before I got there. But I don't think it was that bad. I won't hold that one against you.
Good. Yeah, you survived.
Yeah.
You didn't. Yeah, we both did.
And we learned about roundabouts.
Even crossing international borders. I know we did spend a little time in the office at the border, but that's a story for maybe another day, huh?
Yeah. All
Uh,
right. So this one's not about me. This one's about you. So, how long have you been at Rockwell?
so it's 9 years this summer. June will be 9. Yeah.
And you're a power guy, right?
Yeah. So I've kind of always been a power guy.
Mm-hmm.
Goes back into my days of the family business. But yeah, and for those who maybe don't know me, I thought about what you were talking about earlier. I have grown up along the lake too. So in Erie, Pennsylvania, I live a little closer to Pittsburgh, Western PA now. So moved around a little bit, but mostly spent my time in this part of the state. But yeah, so power. I was before Rockwell. I was at ABB for a couple of years. Drives area manager, same kind of role I started with at Rockwell. And then before that, I had about 18 years in a family business, which was a distributorship selling all kinds of electrical controls, but VFDs, drives were kind of our main thing. So yeah, I was sort of a jack of all trades in the family business, as you can imagine.
Got to do it all.
The computer guy, the IT guy, right? And then there was, a little bit of everything. But I kind of found my home being the technical drives guy. So I would be in sales. I would also go out and start them up. And, I was the phone troubleshooting support for our customers, sales support and all of it. So yeah, it was a spot where I kind of enjoyed just a single, pretty much staying focused on that main product line, because we had a lot of product lines that I could support, and certainly I did, but the bulk of my time was around drives.
Yeah. So what's life like working at a big, gigantic company after working for a family company?
Yeah, it's definitely different culture, right? There's a lot of different things. I think for me, it was surprising, and my dad probably won't like me to say this, but I feel like I got more trust in working remotely than at the bigger company than I did in a smaller one. And I see that still kind of exists today. It's kind of funny. And maybe it's just the way it works with the footprint for bigger companies and how they hire. But this, working in sales, doing a lot of work from home, and then just, my office is my car. I did start technically in the Pittsburgh office for Rockwell, but only in there mostly for sales meetings and stuff like that. But yeah, it's good. It's one of the things I really, you talk about the people at Rockwell. I was kind of blown away when I started working at Rockwell with just the quality of the people I worked with, their level of experience from their past, work. Some had been at Rockwell for years, some were new hires, but everybody was very professional, super welcoming, and the onboarding was very easy. It just was easy to start fitting in with everybody. I loved it.
Yeah, that's cool. I feel like the people are what attracted me here and why I'm interested in this for a while. I think it's a people company, which is important to realize. But I want to take this in a little bit of a different direction. So part of my program here at Rockwell, I have to go to Milwaukee every 6 months and talk about what I did for the last 6 months. And when I was there a month ago, giving my presentation for when I spent time with you. And a central theme that I was talking to somebody about today was you. And my current mentor, Monica, she said, you really talk about Dave like he's a main character. And I think I tongue in cheek said, I think Dave's trying to become a LinkedIn influencer. I want to hear a little bit about and I've heard some about why you're doing this or where you're going with the digital space. And I think you're pushing a lot of things forward that Rockwell hasn't done. Why do you want to start this podcast? Where do you see this going? And I see you laughing because this isn't an easy one, but I think this is more interesting than your background a little bit.
Yeah, no, this is good. I'm glad this is freeform. That's the best way. So, great question. And, I think and I've told you that there's a book I've been reading about social selling that's specifically about LinkedIn. It's a great book, and I've posted a couple segments about it here on LinkedIn. But one of the things that I kind of started really getting frustrated with was if you have LinkedIn and you're connected to people, it's sort of become this place where there's an awful lot of posts that are sort of just like advertisements or like a repost of an article that's just a link, and maybe a little bit of commentary above the article that may or may not be actually from the person, right? Like they may use a service to do that, and it gets kind of frustrating. I feel like when I would watch those posts, when I would do some of my own just like that, just kind of fall in line with everybody else, it just felt like I didn't know that it was very valuable to anybody that followed me. And I thought, well, that's kind of frustrating. I got all these people that follow me that are connected to me on LinkedIn. They should get some value for what they see. And it just doesn't see, it seems like after a while, you're just going to block me because if I just keep posting the same old stuff, and it's not that interesting. And as I was reading the book, it talked about the fact that the reason why social media is so powerful is really because it's a medium that we can actually show who we are to the people that follow us. I mean, you know who I am because you were stuck in a car with me on a trip to Canada, right? So we've spent a lot of time together, but the people that follow me, they may have a very light touch with who Dave Wagner is.
Yeah.
So it started me thinking like, okay, how can I get my, intentionally put my real self out there in a way that just people kind of know who Dave Wagner is. And, maybe they like me, maybe they don't. Right. But the point is they know who I am and they're comfortable because they've heard me talk. They see, me do some things, whether that's, get an ice bath or do some videos on one topic or another. The interview piece felt more like a better way to actually showcase a little bit more about my personality because it's one thing to just talk to a camera. It's another thing to have like a conversation like this.
Yeah.
Right? And it started me thinking, hey, I'd like to do some of these interviews with people I work with, not just for me, but to say, hey, here's, Bobby, who I work with. You should know Bobby because he's pretty cool. And I thought, well, it'd be nice to do some of these and just sort of introduce some of my workmates. So that's kind of the first round that I'm trying to do. I'd like to get a few of the folks that either I've worked with currently or maybe even some of the guys that have retired and get them in front of the camera, have some good conversation like this, just have some fun, right? And, be who we are. That was kind of my goal here.
That's cool.
I don't know if that...
No, I mean, that's definitely what I was going for. I think I admire you for that. I think that in a space that Rockwell plays, where it's an industrial company, it's manufacturing, at times it's not very personable. I think that this is definitely a way to separate yourself from the herd and just make it fun because I think that that's important.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And I've gotten a few people that'll give me a little bit of pushback and say, hey, are you sort of grandstanding with this? You're getting on and showing, all these videos, you're putting all these posts out there. And, hey, I mean, I suppose that's how it could appear. I hope that's not how I come across because I don't think I'm trying to make myself look like, some sort of superhero or like Mr. Know-it-all about AI or something. I do try to post some other stuff that intrigues me. So if I find an article that pops up that I think is super interesting, I will share it and put some comments in there. But, this is really just about, it's just kind of about helping people to know who I am. And, and when you do some of these things, your videos, they show up, day after day. People make a comment, I just got a comment this morning on a post I did like a month ago.
The algorithm.
Yeah. And I have no idea exactly how they prompt someone with one of my posts, but I see it with some of mine too in my feed. Like I'll get one that'll say, like, I pay pretty close attention to like how current the post is that I'm looking at. And when I see one and it's like, 3 weeks old, I'm thinking, well, why is it showing up in my feed now?
Yeah.
But usually it's because somebody in my, network has actually commented on it, or there's something happening with the activity in the comments that you just bring it back to the fore.
Yeah. So. It's social media is an interesting world. I think it's good stuff, though.
Yeah, I think using it correctly, right?
That's true.
I try to be judicious. I'm not posting just for posting's sake. Usually I try to put something out there that I think I want to get some feedback on too. I do wish the community was a little bit more interactive. If there was one thing I got to ask of the people that follow me and you folks that are out there, secretly stalking all the posts, go ahead and make a comment. I mean, I think there's nothing better in this community from what I've seen from those who are active on LinkedIn. There's nothing more exciting for you as a content creator that when you put an article out there to know somebody actually read it and they make a comment on it, right? So it's time. It does take some time, and you do have to watch your time, right? Like you can't just always be on LinkedIn. It's a temptation. I find that like during the day I have to like close the tabs. Otherwise, I get the little number up there that says, "Oh, you have 2 new notifications," and I'm just like, it's too tempting.
It can be a black hole because you can just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
And for those of you who do post, or comment, I do turn the notifications off on my phone too because I can't be just distracted by that stuff all day long.
That's fair.
Yeah. So just a tip.
Yeah. So where do you see LinkedIn and putting yourself out there? How do you see that relating to your job, like your job as a power guy, a solutions consultant here at Rockwell?
Well, I'm kind of hoping that with some of the topics that I'm going to hope. So after I get through maybe doing a few of these interviews with people I work with, I'm kind of thinking about maybe branching into a couple very niche or niche, I don't know how you say that word, topics, and try to bring some original content to this. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hoping to do. And to be honest, some of that is really for my own sake. Like, I feel like if I could start interviewing some people that have knowledge in a specific field about a specific topic, and I'm being vague right now because I don't want to give away where I'm headed exactly, but that may change, right? Like, so anyway, but yeah, I think that will actually be really good for me because what better education can you get by spending maybe 45 minutes interviewing someone about, something they do in the metals industry, let's say. And just if you can get a few of those interviews and you start to talk to people that are in the industry. My role now is focused on the metals industry. That's why I brought that up. So if I could get some interviews with folks that are in that industry, it's going to educate me, right? And then if I'm learning and I can record it and share it, then everyone's learning, right? I mean, that's the beauty of podcasts today, right? You get to sit and listen to, somebody get interviewed and you find out, oh, I never knew that job existed. I didn't know somebody did that, or I didn't know that that's where this industry was headed. So you just learn stuff, right? That's the whole beauty of it.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think, it takes effort, right? This content doesn't create itself. There's the recording of it, the editing and stuff too. So learning to do some of that or figuring out how to get some of it done, it does take a little effort.
Yeah. A couple of the podcasts I listen to that are not related to work, all those people will just say, keep making content, and you'll eventually figure it out where your niche is. And I think that makes sense. And I feel like you're where I'm in on the ground. A line I like to use recently is, I got in on the ground floor at Dave Wagner as this influence. And maybe you don't like me saying a social media influencer, but I think I say that with all the best intention. I really think you're doing something a lot of people aren't doing in our space, which I think is cool. I mean, you definitely have your like super well-known people, but I think there's definitely room for more people to have an opinion and discuss the conversation.
Yeah. It is funny. Like, some of the things I'm posting are actually starting conversations outside of social media. So,
really?
Yeah. Like, you literally, it happened to me just a couple weekends ago. I was in a group of people and someone came up to me and they were like, "Dave, I got to ask you a question." And I was like, "Okay, I wonder what this is about." And they're like, "What's with the ice baths?" Right. So, I mean, like, and I just started laughing because I'm like, I had no idea this person I forgot like if they even followed me on LinkedIn. I didn't know. Like, so yeah, that's another thing that's kind of fun is like, I'm hoping that some of these conversations that we have publicly spur conversations, privately, right? So they turn into something that's like, "Hey, I heard you talking about this. Tell me a little bit about what you know about that subject." And then, it's just kind of fun, right? Like it goes in a certain direction. But Yeah, podcasts are cool. So I thought about just doing this as an audio thing, but it seems like it's so easy to take these platforms and do the video too. So decided to do the video, but just
You're almost
take.
going to gloss over something I want to talk about, so
All right.
I'm going to not let you escape.
Yeah, you better just go on to the next question because
You got to talk about the ice baths.
Oh, so I snuck that in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mentioned it, but you got to really. I think you're crazy. Whenever you post that stuff, I respond. I think you're crazy.
Yeah,
but
I think
what's the deal with that stuff?
I think that guy that brought it up too said the same thing, that I was crazy. So, and yeah, I haven't done one since COVID hit, and then the weather got a little warmer around here, so my bath isn't as cold, so it's not as much fun. But I got to get some bags of ice or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it started with cold showers. Some people saw me post that. So the way this really worked out was I started in December. I had read something in a book about cold showers and how they can make you feel better. And it was like dopamine, and it's cold. So I kind of thought about it. I wonder how hard this really is. So I didn't go cold turkey with the cold, pun intended. And
nice.
I would take a shower and just keep turning the cold down, right?
Yeah.
Just a little at a time. And then it just was like, okay, I got to do this like full on cold, and and it was hard, right? Like it wasn't easy. And I can't say that I came out like riding this like crazy high after a cold shower, but I did feel like it was this small accomplishment. Like, okay, I did it. And part of it was because I was having some pain in my hip, and I was like thinking maybe this cold will help with some of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working on a couple things to try to fix that problem. But in any case, I stopped over the holidays. We had taken a trip out west, and I just kind of let it slide. And then when I got back home in January, I thought, well, I'm going to go back at this. And so I started looking at some online groups, and some people were saying that the best way to do it is to just like get your head under immediately, like just turn the cold right on, like, so that's what I started doing. And it actually is easier. It's hard to do it because you're like, as you're hearing that water ready to come out, you're just like, oh, this is going to suck. And then it hits you. And yeah, it's like, but what's really funny, so a couple of things I've learned, I shouldn't say really funny. It depends on the audience if they really care about this.
No, I care.
So what's funny to me is I have well water, and it feels cold. But man, when I would go to hotels in the winter, and I imagine the water's coming out of some tower somewhere, right? And, I mean, it just felt like literally like icicles coming out.
Oh, it's colder.
Oh, my word. Yeah. So I'm trying to like stick with this. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. So one of the reasons why I put on LinkedIn the fact that I started this cold shower journey was a little bit to publicly hold myself to the commitment, right? Yeah. So if you put it out there and say, and I didn't actually say what I was committing to, I just kind of said, hey, I wonder if I can keep this up, right? And I think I'm coming up on the end of 3 months now.
You've been taking a warm shower in 3 months?
That's correct.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know I guess I kind of realized it was that long, but I didn't know if you'd do that full time.
Yeah. My wife says I'm crazy too. But
she would know.
I actually do like the feeling of getting out of the shower now and not being hot. It's kind of weird. I've gotten like really comfortable with that. And so it's funny too, like, when you're taking a warm shower and you shut off the water and you're like, oh, I got to dry off because I'm going to get cold.
Yeah.
Well, it's exactly the opposite with a cold shower. As soon as you turn off the cold water, you're like, I'm done with that. And you don't feel cold, So, well, then I thought I got to try the ice bath thing. Like, I've gone this far. I've already conditioned myself to this cold pretty well. And I've heard talk of people who say the cold showers are actually harder than the cold ice baths, which kind of blows my mind because when you're in the shower, you can kind of, it's like you don't have to always be completely in the stream, right? You can kind of, it depends on how dedicated you are to staying in that cold stream. So in the bath, man, that's it. You're in, the whole body's in. But so I actually felt like there was more impact from the cold bath, though.
Really?
The cold bath definitely is harder for
Hmm.
me. Started out with 1 minute, then like a minute and a half, then two. And I maybe did a couple of days in a row, but most of the time I had like a day in between. You know,
Hmm.
so I try to do like 3 days a week. And the colder the water, the easier it was. Surprisingly,
You go numb a little bit quicker.
yeah, I don't know if it's numbness. I'm not sure what it is, the reaction, but I've read also that this is typical. But the one time I got in and it was like a warmer day and the water wasn't so cold was the one time that I actually started shivering while I was in the water.
Really?
But I've never shivered when it was like ice on top. Like I had to break the ice to get in. I've never
Yeah, you sent
shivered.
me that video. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, even after 6 minutes, right? Like so yeah, 4 minutes is kind of like I feel like that's kind of my sweet spot. 6 minutes in really cold water, I've gotten out and you can kind of feel like your motor skills are a little bit off and you're just kind of like, it takes a little longer to come around. But it definitely actually did help the pain in my hip. The ice
Really?
baths really did. Yeah, like I would actually start to have some pain and I would get in and then I would be good for like a day and a half with no pain. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why people do it is for anything that's inflammatory.
Yeah.
So in any kind of inflammation, sickness, a lot of people see some benefits with that.
So you're gonna have to start. Are you gonna buy an ice bath for the summer, or are you gonna just do the bag of ice thing?
No, I'm hoping to get up to Canada like right when the ice goes out and get in the water. So, but I don't know if
That
that's
sounds very cold.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's on my agenda. But that would yeah up at our at the place in Canada that we go to. End of April is usually when the ice goes out.
I mean,
So,
you're like a lake shower guy in the summer when you're up there, right?
yeah,
So that's perfect. It's like a built-in feature that you just got.
that's right. Well, see, so I was joking with my wife. I said, all the years we go up to Canada and we jump in the water and it's cold and we're just like, this is miserable. But then you get out and you feel like you've accomplished something. I'm like, all these years we've been doing that. We didn't realize the adrenaline and the dopamine rush we were getting from it. See, we just thought it was just because it was natural lake water. It's the fact that it's cold.
Yeah.
So,
And you got to jump in. You can't try to go down the ladder.
yeah,
That's my opinion of that, at least.
different schools of thought there.
Do you go down the ladder?
I jump in.
Okay, good.
Yeah, my wife goes in the ladder.
Well,
It's
I
hard
think
to
that's
commit.
I think it's way harder to commit going down the ladder.
Yeah. When you hit that water if you dive in head first, you get it all over with at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I usually scream when I come up out of the water though. Yeah.
I'm known in my family for not being able to tolerate cold water very well. So like I'll jump in most of the time, but it's very quickly to the ladder. Like that was freezing.
So since since you are sailing
Yeah.
a lot and sometimes in cold water,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you've ever really gone in the water unexpectedly, but
Oh yeah.
It's funny how cold water. This is sort of a weird thing too. I've noticed when we go up north and it's cold. If you're busy doing some work in the water,
Mm-hmm.
like you have a function to accomplish. So like maybe
Takes your mind
working
off.
on the dock or something, right? Like when your mind's on something else, you don't notice the cold so much. But when you're just trying to get in for the sake of like swimming,
Yeah.
it's completely different.
Yeah.
And that's the way I say it. That is about like the shower, right? You get in the shower, you just get busy washing your hair or whatever. And so
Yeah.
you just get your mind onto doing things, and then pretty soon you're done and you get out. So it's not too bad. But
Yeah. Definitely when I'm sailing usually it's early spring or late fall and I'm in the water, it's usually really windy, usually capsize a small boat, and the adrenaline when you're in the water is crazy. It's like a little bit of chaos, a little bit of danger. I'm still here, so like it couldn't have been that bad, but you're right. It's definitely like you're not thinking about it, but then you're also like, as soon as you're out of the water, especially when I'm in the water for sailing and it's cold, I'm usually wearing all my clothes. So it's like like that frigid, I feel like is different than jumping in intentionally. But
yeah,
cold water is crazy.
So that's another thing that's kind of bizarre, and I don't know if this is mental, but like, so my ice tub is on the back porch, right?
Mhm.
So a couple of days I've gotten in, it's been like windy and cold and snowy.
Oh yeah.
and it's weird because I feel like protected in the water
Hmm.
versus when you like actually get out and you're having to like dry off. It's like, oh man, I'm exposed to the cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's strange. Like the water is super cold. It's obviously if you were in there too long, it'd be hypothermic. But
Yeah.
you think for some reason your brain's like, I feel safer under this water than I do like out in the cold, snowy, blowing all over my body. So,
Hmm. Wasn't that like a thing that all Midwesterners say? It's like, it's all about the wind chill. It's cold, but then it's the wind chill that really gets you.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, the wind chills it can be pretty rough.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's about the ice bath. I don't have a whole lot more to say about that.
I think I got to try one.
Yeah, the one thing about the cold shower is you don't have to turn your fan on in the bathroom. 'Cause
Oh,
there's just
yeah, no
steam.
condensation to worry about.
The mirror doesn't fog up on you. None of that. So
See, I think I'm more ready to try an ice bath than the cold shower because I love a hot shower.
yeah, I was just telling Doug about this. So when you talked about going down the ladder and how hard that is,
Mm-hmm.
for some strange reason, like just getting in the water in that tub is not that hard. Like
Mhm.
like I would have thought like you'd have this resistance to just kind of like sitting down and sort of
Mhm.
sliding in the water, but it's kind of like you're just getting in. It doesn't really, it's cold. Don't get me wrong, and I set my watch and watch closely on my fork. I try not to watch the clock, obviously, because it doesn't go very fast. So I just maybe sit there and focus on breathing.
Do you
And
do
since
a
it's
timer? Do you
outside,
do like a timer that beeps at the end?
yeah, well, my watch has a timer, so it vibrates, and I can see it in the water. But I can only say this: like everything I've read, and there's actually a good podcast. I think it's Andrew Huberman on YouTube.
Yeah,
If you look
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, if you look him up, he does one on ice baths. It's pretty long. I actually don't think I covered the whole thing yet,
Mm-hmm.
but he talks about some of the different benefits and some of the ways people do it. But you do really need to start slow. I mean, and work your way up. You can't just expect to jump in and hit 4 minutes right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I've had days where, for whatever reason, it's a time of day where like I get 3 minutes and I'm just like, that's it. I'm getting out
Mhm.
because I just don't feel good about it. Right? Like it's just not happening.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's days when my watch is beeping at 4 minutes, and I'm just like, yeah, I could go a whole another minute. I don't mind. Like, so, it's you do have to start slow. What I noticed was my feet. The first day I did it, my feet like literally were in sharp pain when I got in the water. Like within minutes, my feet were just hurting. And I thought, man, if this is like this every time, I won't be able to do this for 3 minutes. So.
Yeah, and you got to use your investment of that ice bathtub.
The very
amortize that cost a little bit over more than 1 3 minute.
The very next time though, my feet didn't hurt at all, which kind of was crazy. Yeah, and then my hands were hurting because I started putting my hands in the water, and a couple people were like, "Well, you should put your hands on if you actually put your palms down onto your legs,
Mhm.
it actually helps a little." Which that's what I started doing for a while. And same thing after conditioning a little bit, then my hands didn't hurt so much, and so it's kind of wild how you can. I think it just goes to show you how you can condition yourself to those situations. Your body adapts to things like better than you kind of think, and I think it's kind of a lesson. There's a lesson behind the whole thing, and if you've ever one of my favorite books that I've read was about the Shackleton adventure, in Antarctica, and how those guys all got stuck in the ice, and
Mm-hmm.
it's quite a long time they were there. And I always thought, man, they didn't have Gore-Tex, and they were, it's probably just wool coats and different things. And those guys, they all survived.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, man, they must have been really just tough guys. But I think it's the conditioning. It's kind of the conditioning, So
that's funny.
Yeah.
I subscribe to the position. I've spent a lot of time cold sailing, and I've come to the realization that there's no bad weather, just bad gear. Like, you just don't have the right jacket. But you can't put a jacket on for an ice bath. So
Yeah, I've seen a couple posts. There's a woman I saw do an ice bath, and she had like the Gore-Tex,
My
almost
camera's
like
fuzzy.
your diving gloves. Yeah, looks like you got a little focus, out of focus issue there.
I don't know. We're getting off topic. The people can still see my pretty face.
Yeah, well, we can always edit a piece if we fix the technical. So, but yeah, so that's the scoop on the ice bath. So, yeah, you should try it. You should at least try it a couple of times. You can't like some people have been like, I tried it once and it was too hard. But yeah, you have to kind of commit yourself to doing it a few times.
So what else do you want to talk about today?
Me? Yeah, well, I guess this interview was about me. So
yeah,
I don't know. I do. I was just thinking about, I guess, from a career perspective in my work. We talked a little bit about it in this current role I'm in at Rockwell. It's this solution consultant role. I like what I do. It's industry focused. So I like being part of the metals industry team. Kind of. I'm not really in their team, so to speak, but I support that team, and it's been kind of fun. I had a lot of sort of fringe experience with the metals industry, being in the Pittsburgh territory most of my life, but this has kind of put me a little bit more square in the middle of it. And then I'm really interested in a lot of the sustainability topics that are going on. I think there's some cool things that the metals and steel industry are doing with sustainability. And if you look at the posts that they have on LinkedIn and all their posts, I mean, I could say that probably somewhere around 80% of the posts I see from the major producers have something about sustainability in them. Like it's something about sustainability. So it's like a big topic right now. It's like something that everyone's, seems to be involved with. And the steel industry has some major technical hurdles still to get a little closer to the goals, but some of the information I've read says that the North American steel industry is actually pretty far ahead on their decarbonization compared to a lot of the rest of the producers around the world. So that's kind of cool too. It's one of the, surprisingly, I guess, maybe that the U.S. is ahead of the curve there. But that part of there's a number of factors that I've read about in that, but I won't get into the details. But it's kind of cool.
Well, drives help sustainability.
Yeah, it's a piece of the story. Yeah. I mean, anything that they can do to, obviously decarbonization involves moving away from fossil fuels, and a huge piece of steel making involves, blast furnaces and coke oven, that's taking coal and making it into a solid piece of carbon and using that to make primary metal, right? So that's a piece of the industry that still has some work to be done. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
I think Rockwell's new industry focus is pretty cool to get to know and be comfortable in a space. And you're diving. I mean, it's your world, but I really think it's cool how much you're diving in.
Yeah, so there's a lot of times we talk about being customer focused. Like there's that kind of we need to be customer focused, right? Everyone's all, I want to think like my customer, but it's a lot easier to do when you're industry focused because you tend to start to feel the trends of the industry. You start to feel where the goals are. You understand from one customer to the next in that same industry, what they're trying to achieve. You understand what their goals and KPIs or incentives are. Those things start to really help you understand how to have those conversations that are very customer centric, and doesn't necessarily mean that every conversation you have this widget that's going to immediately reduce their carbon footprint, right? But at least you understand some of the things, the challenges they're having, and you can have some conversations, and then you find out what they're doing, and sometimes you obviously, again, to me, and I said this with Doug when he interviewed me yesterday, like the thing I've always liked about this job is not so much just the people that I work with at Rockwell, but it's the customer, those
Yeah.
people, right? So those relationships, those are the ones where you kind of learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think about all the different things I've learned about many different industries since I've been in this type of role.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't have understood a lot of things, and even the terminology. From one industry to the next, there's always acronyms and terminology and things that like it takes you a while to understand because every company, every industry has their terminology. So, in metals they'll say EAF. I said when I was always like, well, what's EAF, right? Well, electric arc furnace. There's a lot of those terms that you don't really know until you start to spend a little time around the industry and you understand, what does that do? What is the electric arc furnace? How does it work?
Mm-hmm.
Then you get to see one, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You actually see one in operation when they're melting the metal in this,
Well, I feel like going in metals and mining industry facilities or mines or factories or plants, that's somewhere not a lot of people get to go. So I bet you. I bet you've got some cool stories of. Have you been in underground mines?
Yeah. So I got one tour into a mine. Actually, the interview Doug did with me, the snippet I posted on LinkedIn, and I actually I tagged the guy who took me underground from Arch Coal. But it was a great experience. My wife didn't want me to go underground. She's like, I don't want you to go in that mine. And I'm like, well, you got to understand, people work in the mine every day. I'm just going down for one day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about, I think it was, if I remember right, it was like 600 feet underground. It wasn't like super deep.
That's not,
wasn't
yeah. That
it
doesn't sound like crazy, but I don't have much.
But whether you're 100 feet or 600 feet, it probably doesn't matter that much. At some point, yeah, if something bad happens. But we got trained for mine safety, right? So we had to go through all the safety training, and I was kind of, again, like the things you learn, I was like amazed at the systems they have set up for the miners' safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the cool things that I remember was they have these cables that run in every single shaft underground.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, literally, if you're completely pitch black, you can't see anything for some reason, you can feel your way to the sidewall and find this cable. And then on the cable are like different shapes.
Oh.
So you imagine like a cone. If you had a cone on the cable, the cone would actually point you in the direction you need to go. So you can literally walk holding the cable, and and there's other things on the cable that'll identify like where there's a station where you can get like the breathing apparatus charged or more oxygen.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of surprising, like some of the things that you never know if you didn't work in that industry.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't remember everything about it, but at the time we got all that training. Like, okay, if something happens, here's what the cable means. Here's what these pieces on the cable mean, and so you can find your way. And because there's the elevator that takes you down, and then there's the slope. And at least in this mine, there was a slope belt, so you could literally walk. If you could get your way to the slope, you could literally walk up the slope and out.
Oh, really? So
it'd be a long slope, right? Because it's an incline, but it still would be the way out if you couldn't use the elevators. So yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting. But Jeff Savasta, put a plug in for Jeff. He at the time he was one of our field service engineers. He has a pretty good story about being in the coal mine. He did a lot of work in underground. And
we just identified somebody for you to talk to next.
Yeah, right. He would be great. He's got a good story about I think it was his battery and his headlamp went out. He was working by himself.
That seems like it wouldn't be great.
Yeah, it was pretty stinking dark.
I believe it. I told kind of random, but I went to Mammoth Caves like 15 years ago with my family, and we did a cave tour, and like it was like we did two. One was like on a path through the cave, and then the second one was like a more intense tour. It's like they called it like an intermediate tour, but we had to put like overall coveralls on, and we all had helmets and lights, and that was the only light. And I remember at one point they had us all turn our lights off and experience total darkness. And it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen, because like your eyes, there's no light for your eyes to ever adjust to, and I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, it was kind of funny too, because one of the things I didn't expect was basically where the elevator went down into the shaft, into the mine shaft. It was at the bottom of the elevator. It was all like almost like a well lit room. You know, they had like a boot cleaning station and everything there, and it was clean floors. And then when you went out, like actually to where the rail line is in the mine, because we actually had to get on a rail car and then go quite far into
to
get to the face, right?
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a ride in, but that section where we got on the underground, I'll call it a train. I forget what they call it.
Yeah.
It was all lit up, you know. I mean, it had fluorescent lighting, so it's just like being in the basement of a building, if you will, right? Like it doesn't feel like you're in a mine. But then, of course, once you get down to tunnels a little bit and you start getting into the mine, that part, you know,
Start to feel it.
Yeah. And then the mine face is the coolest part, because obviously you get to see the operation of what they're doing. So
Yeah.
Was
it like, did you have to like duck? Like how tall was it? Did you have to like duck down?
No, so this mine that we were in was plenty. The height of the ceiling was plenty high for us to walk normally.
Really?
When they're working on the mine face, I believe they call these things the shields. It's kind of really neat how it works. So they have these individual. I think they're about a foot wide, with a fairly high, large hydraulic cylinder on them, and they're lined up one after the other. And what happens is, they actually have like a top piece that goes over your head that has a light on it. And when the mining, so they mine the face, so they have basically a big cutting tool that cuts off the coal, and then it drops onto a conveyor and it goes out. Well, as they're moving across that face, these shields actually, like, they go down and then they move forward automatically, and then they go back up, and they literally like hold the roof as they're mining. And then, so they'll tell you that, like, that's the safest place in the mine
is at the face.
You're under all these things that are holding the surface up. And surprisingly, they actually let this was the thing that kind of blew my mind when I learned it, was they actually let the ground basically fall behind these shields. So as these things are moving forward and they're cutting through this face, basically the mine essentially collapsed behind that. So as they move through, it just falls down. So the only pieces that they're actually always open as tunnels are on the sides of that face. So they have to, before they start cutting the face, the coal face, they actually create basically a tunnel system all the way around.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's an open end on each end, but as they cut through that face, it just basically collapses behind it as they move through.
So are the tunnels reinforced?
Yeah. So they have. And I didn't really look into all of how they do that, but yeah, the tunnels are kind of reinforced in some ways. They have those rods that they put up into the roof that hold the ceilings up.
That's pretty crazy.
I trust that they did their job. I had to trust it.
They wouldn't be taking you down there if there was.
Yes.
On the news.
Yeah, the Rockwell sales guy
from Rockwell Automation.
Yeah. The expendable Rockwell sales guy.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So, yeah, lots of good stories. If you talk to drives guys like me, and especially if you get a beer in us, we'll talk all night about, things that happened in the industry and funny stories.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten some of those from you. So I think I want to come back on and pick your brain a little more. But I also want you to interview me. So.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan. So yeah, this is probably, I know we said, but half hour, 45 minutes, but I've definitely gone more than that.
Pretty close to that.
Yeah, probably should wrap it up, huh?
Yeah. Well, Dave, I really liked my 6 months with you. I like to say you're stuck with me, so you're going to keep hearing from me. I'm excited to see where this goes. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Thanks for doing the interview. And yeah, I enjoyed the 6 months working together too. It was a lot of fun. So
awesome.
I don't know. Maybe they'll give me another LDP. And you'll.
I can scam someone into that for you.
Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. It won't be the same.
No,
You've set the bar so high, so
or you can only go up from here. You
could be.
never know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, hey, thanks for interviewing and making this much very, very conversational. So nice work on the interview. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
All right,
We'll
talk
wrap
soon.
it up there,
Yeah,
and you have a good rest of the day.
sounds good. You too. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
How'd I do?
Good. You did awesome. Where's my button to stop recording?
I don't know.